Yeah. So the inequalities, like examples, if you see, maybe you can notice in your everyday, like life also. If you belong to like some city or some town, okay. So there may be some like a distinctions, like maybe some visibly like a distinctions which you can like see like in this picture, there is this train line going, and there is this road, like a highway kind of like a nice road, okay, and then I see a boundary wall over here running like this. If you notice, I don't know like what this boundary wall is, but there is like a clear cut, like like a boundary between like this side, left side and right side, because I see a boundary like made here also all along, like this colony. If you see, there is a wall, like a going is visible, and its shadow is also clearly visible. It's a nice, like a height, like a full height wall. It's segregating, like a left to right, right, and it's clearly visible, the kind of habitat, like we have on the right side and we have on the right side, left side. Okay, they are so like a different. Okay, their sizes, like their materials, the spaces in between, like these roads and open spaces on every plot, at the front and at the back. Okay, between like a two, like a houses, there is also some gap, noticeable gap, front lawn, gardens, right, and all of those things. And every plot has a nice access, proper access. Whereas here, if you see, well, there are like a road kind of, like access which doesn't looks like, like a proper road, like this surface. If you see, this surface color is doesn't look like, like a paved, like a surface like this, a tar road, right? It's not like this. And in between these, now there are like a alleys, like a gullies, like in between, very kind of like a densely packed, like a one to other, and that too like very small. If you see these sizes, they are very small, so it shows, like a disparity in distribution of like a resources at city level, at planning level, right? So here we are seeing like a properly laid, like a gardens, like a like a games and sports facilities are also visible, right? Open, like a lands, right? Breathable spaces, like everywhere, a lot of greenery, vegetation, trees, etc. On the other side, also it looks like, totally, like empty and deprived of, like those things, right? Yeah. So gap wise, if you see gender gap, like this slide illustrate, this is the source, ILO. Gender gap in the share of informal employment in total employment, including agriculture, latest year, you see from 2018. Okay, so like men, like here if you see, this is like men have like a more, by women, so more than 10 points. This is the distribution. 10 like a percentage points, and this is 5 to 10 percentage point, 2.5 to 5 percentage points, and 0 to 2.5 percentage points. Okay, so there are 6 countries under this, 29 here, 19, 27 here. And if women have like a more of, like this, compared to, like a men, so that is also given over here, that slab, like over 10 percentage, points, 5 to 10, 2.5, and 0 to 2.5. Okay, so you can see, like, it's quite visible, like the developed countries are with the, like a good, like a economic power, like a capacity wala countries, like a good GDP wala countries, majorly, like not it's true for everyone. Okay, but majorly they are here, like they are good, they have more, like percentage point for, like a men over the women. And in this ones, green ones, it is majorly scattered towards, like in the Asia and Southern America, like these countries, and in Asia also, Southeast Asia, I think all of these countries. Okay, Indonesia also, and here, yeah, and some like Spain, and like some more, these European countries also, right? And yeah, so you can see, like, global, like a north and global south is, like a clearly visible, like a through, like a this one, except Australia and New Zealand, of course. Okay, and Brazil. Yeah, so this is this distribution, we are seeing. So what is informal employment? If you see, Globally, the share of women in informal employment is lower than the share of men. But there are actually more countries, 55.4%, where the share of women in informal employment exceeds the share of men. Okay. Well, of course, these are, like these countries here in the greens. In fact, women are more exposed to informal employment than men in over 90% of sub-Saharan African countries, 89% of countries in Southern Asia, and almost 75% of Latin American countries. Yeah. So this, and this South Asia. Okay. There's major impacting, like regions, where more women are in informal employment setup. Okay, that is the conclusion actually this slide is actually driving, and you can see like these distributions in 4 different like a percentage point like a slabs. Okay. Okay, here acceptability of work for women by sex and educational achievement, year 2016. So yeah, here if you see, this is percentage is given over here on the left side, 0 to 100, and then primary, secondary, university for women, and here it is divided for men. Okay, so women and men. So in this one, acceptability for work for women. So if you see, like agree is showed depicted by like a blue. So 77.5 at primary level, and for men it is 72%. Okay, and for women at secondary level this is 85.5, and for men it is 79.2, and yeah, at university level for women it is 88.7, for men it is 85.1. Okay, so and don't know or refused, yeah, so agree. So question asked to men and women, so let's understand what that is. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is perfectly acceptable for any woman in your family to have a paid job outside the home if she wants one. Okay, so this was the question, and these are the like answers. Okay, so for women at primary, this level, this is the percentage of like agreement, and secondary at university. Well, comparison wise, for the agree percentage, if I see, like this is I think higher than their like a same category in the men, right here, like 77.5 to 72, 85.5 to 79.2, and 88.7 to 85.1. Okay, yeah, you can see the source for latest data. Yeah, another one, it is estimated that the gender gap in time spent in unpaid care work would not be closed until year 2228. We are in year 2023 currently, like this year. Okay, so you see the gap, like is over 225 years it would take to bridge like this gap. In other words, closing the gap would take 209 years from like at that time. Okay, so this is the gap like we are talking about. Time spent daily in unpaid care work, paid work, and total work by sex and income group latest year. Yeah, so this is this distribution at world level. You can see here hours per day. So of course for women it is like here in unpaid care work it is like 4 hours 25 minutes. Paid work, this is 3 hours 3 minutes. Okay, for men it is significantly lesser, it's 1 hour 23 minutes, and paid work 5 hours 22 minutes, right? This is the world's like average. Okay, so of course it is very much like a clear that gender wise it is not properly distributed, right? So this should also, this yellow also should be like a lesser in this side. Similarly for African countries also, if you see, this is the distribution for Americas here. Okay, so this disparity is highest in the Arab states. If you see, like women 5 hours 29 minutes like they do unpaid work, and men only 1 hour, like a 10 minutes. Okay, so for women it is the highest among all the regions across the world, 5 hours 29 minutes, right? And the lowest I see for women is in, I think, 4 hour 22 low income countries. Yeah, here in low income countries I see this is at 4 hours 22 minutes for women. Yeah, so this is this distribution. So it shows of course in, I think, every like a region. In the high income countries also there is disparity, here also disparity, here also, here also, here also, here also, here also, here also, and of course with the world also. So everywhere if you see there is like a disparity among men and women in like a time spent on unpaid care work. Another one, countries where the law mandates equal remuneration for work of equal value, 2018. So law mandates equal remuneration is shown by blue. Yeah, so surprisingly if you see North Americas, Central Americas, and many in the Latin Americas, this is in no. Okay, the law doesn't mandates equal work for equal value. Okay, and in Southeast Asia also, in China also, right, and many African countries, Southern Africa, South Africa also. Okay, the blue ones if you see are present only in few countries here in Southern America, and this African group, yeah, Russia, and many of these European countries except a few Eastern European countries and Australia. Well, New Zealand also doesn't have it. Okay, so well, there may have been some improvement over time. So this is the like a data I could found from ILO website. This is from 2018. I'm sure, and I would be happy to see if there are like improvements. Yeah, another like a visual depiction of disparity. Okay, divided by like this road. From left to right. Yeah, so some like areas to combat discrimination and inequalities we will see like at different levels. So this is at country level. Set up programs to promote institutions, laws, policies and actions to combat discrimination on the basis of race, sex, language, ethnicity, religion, age, disability, caste, indigenous status, health status, migrant status, minority status or other grounds. So you can see the like these areas where discrimination is possible, and to advance equal access to justice. Provide support for reducing spatial or geographical inequalities between rural and urban areas and or between industrialized and non-industrialized or remote regions, including by promoting responsible and socially inclusive investments. Okay, one of the like a very relevant examples of like a such investments is in education sector and health sector, right? That people face like the most difficulty, even transportation also, like other infrastructure, like these things. So, well, all sorts of infrastructure and facilities and investments are better, in the city areas, in the urban areas majorly, and it starts like a lowering, to the towns, and then perhaps the lowest in the villages, right? That is one of the root causes, for migration. In search of better facilities for the education itself, it begins right in the early ages, for schooling, for like a college, for university, specialized degrees, etc., etc. Okay, if these things are not like they are present in some like a good qualitative like this thing, right? People are forced to send their like children to the urban areas. and eventually they get settled there itself. Okay, very minuscule percentage of people actually come back to their native places, and they settle down for the employment, because once educated, like those employability like options are also get like limited, and perhaps they are most concentrated in the urban areas, right? So this migration, this actually short migration becomes a permanent migration. Okay, so you see like how the lack of facilities in education are the biggest drivers, at least in our Indian scenario, we can say that. Okay, majority of the people from like a populous remote villages, they move to the cities for better education facilities. And then second comes for the health. Okay, well, everybody wants to be fit, healthy, and like a working, and they want to take care of their other family members, and in lack of like a proper health like a care facilities, they are bound to move to the urban areas. Well, this actually happens at maybe short duration, but keeping in mind, if you are worried about your future or your family's future, this also is a driver which pushes people to go to the like urban areas, because there you have like a 24-hour access to the like a good quality like a healthcare system. Well, healthcare may be there in the villages also, but it may not be available all the time or every day of the like a year, or maybe 24 hours like a day. Okay, so people are in emergency situations, they actually run to the cities, right? They move to the urban areas, and in majority of the like a such like a migratory like a decisions. Okay, this also is one of the reasons why people choose to move to the urban areas, right? So if investments, this is the point being made over here, like if the investments in these sectors, these crucial sectors starts happening in the rural areas, definitely a lower percentage of people might find it interesting to go to urban areas. Why otherwise, why would like somebody would leave their own like home and fields, right? So yeah, next point: implement initiatives that promote gender equality and eliminate all forms of discrimination and violence against women, and promote investments to close the gender gap, and that strengthen support for institutions for gender equality and the empowerment of women. Assist in strengthening of economic governance, regulation, accountability, and the rule of law in the economic sphere. Sustain full employment of inclusive economic policies promoting decent work. Support the elimination of employment discrimination and reinforce labor rights, including decent work, minimum wages, including for migrant workers, freedom of association and collective bargaining, and the eradication of forced and child labor. Okay, so in any form, actually these like a labor related things must improve. Implement initiatives to combat all forms of age discrimination against older people in employment, and promote youth employment and socio-economic inclusion of all ages, and to address the vulnerability of young people to higher unemployment and lower quality of jobs, and to longer and more insecure school to work transitions. Okay, so if you see like what motivates like a family to take the decision to send their kids to like a workplaces. Okay, well, in principle everybody wants to give like a better future to their like a children, but compulsions and other like a hard like situations in their life, maybe economic or other opportunity exercise, if they are making it hard, then this is totally unacceptable, and civil society, this must not actually happen. Yeah, some more points at country level: provide assistance for social protection systems, so that like interests of people, society is taken care of. That reduces inequalities through safety nets that maintain the right to an adequate standard of living for all. Ensures support for universal health coverage. Yeah, if this happens, like a majority of the people, like of citizens of the country, will be benefiting, because not everybody has like a economic like a capability to meet maybe some eventuality in health like a care scenario. If it happens, maybe if you go to some specialized kind of medical like a situation, it costs like a quite a lot these days, specifically like a health, when healthcare like a costing is increasing. Okay, then this becomes like relevant like more than ever. and universal access to healthcare that are free for catastrophic out-of-pocket expenditure that result from health costs that reduce poverty and inequality. Yeah, the points I mentioned. Establish programs for universal access to education, water, sanitation, care, etc. and other economic social rights to promote greater equality in opportunities and outcomes. Provide assistance in achieving universal access to information and communications technologies and the narrowing of digital divide. Yeah. So since like a digital like devices and internet and everything carries the potential that it can like help you getting information or access to information, right, or reaching out to different places to find about education, job, employment, etc., etc. Okay, so this as a facility, this as a technological facility also must be granted to everyone. Set up programs to support redistributive fiscal policy and progressive taxation. Reverse extreme concentrations of wealth and progressively achieve greater equality. Provide assistance for tackling illicit outflows and tax evasions so that those who are in capacity of paying taxes must not escape it. Strengthen the protection of freedom of expression. Association and assembly insulate democratic institutions and processes from elite political capture. Sometimes this also happens in different countries. Ensure equal political participation for all women and men and promote public access to information. Create programs to reinforce private sector accountability, including by implementing the guiding principles on business and human rights, ensuring the effective regulation of businesses by governments, conducting social, environmental and human rights impacts assessments, and implementing the due diligence safeguards to prevent negative impacts. Lastly, support measures to protect vulnerable, marginalized and excluded communities. In order to prevent, mitigate and build resilience to the impacts of climate, natural disaster, desertification, land degradation and humanitarian crisis. Well, these like situations are not known in like what region is going to what kind of like a such situation, but if it occurs like a people should be like a given like a measures support measures to protect themselves from like a such disaster situations. Well, some points like at regional level, build a bridge between the global and national levels, including by adapting and incorporating elements of this equality framework into regional policy frameworks, transmitting them to country level, and by informing the global agenda with national experiences. Conduct studies and share best practices so that everybody can benefit to deepen the understanding of the multiple dimensions of inequality. Develop indicators and operational guidelines to follow up on the implementation of regionally or internationally agreed agendas at the national and local levels. As part of the follow-up and review of the implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, review in the regional forums on sustainable development the status of implementation of the Agenda of Equality, and build on the experience and sectoral guidance of the regional commissions, intergovernmental subsidiary bodies, etc. Promote pro-equality public policies as core elements of the regional development policies. At global level, much bigger level, including like all the countries, promote a more equitable global trading system. This is one of the like important things. How do you bring like everyone at par and everyone at the same table is by like helping like everyone to like trade at the same like equitable like opportunity, right? That addresses inequalities built into the existing trade rules, particularly for the least developing countries, because well these rules and regulations are also framed by like a strong countries. So in many of the cases they are favored towards like the high income countries, and that implements the principle of spatial and different like a treatment. Develop a more equitable international financial system, so that like no one country can take maybe undue advantage of like a financial system or financing systems, including better regulation of global financial markets and of speculation, the equitable participation of all states in the institutions of global governance. As identified in the 2030 Agenda, the official development assistance to countries with people in the greatest need. Reinforce national policy space to promote inequality reducing measures and to correct policy incoherence between intellectual property right and trade rules, public health, human rights, etc. Cooperate in technology transfer. One of the again like very important things we have discussed earlier, like when the vaccines of like corona were developed by developed countries. Okay, they were like immediately like siphoned off to themselves only. Well, very like a few of them actually shared with the rest of the world. And in the Indian scenario, if you see, when India started producing its own vaccine, it consumed at domestic level also, as well as at the same time parallelly is sent to the like a global at global level also to different like a countries, is exported to many countries, including like a low developing countries also, so that like a good share actually can be given to them. Yeah. Finally, strengthen global governance on migration in a way that recognizes the rights of all migrants and refugees under universal human rights and rules. Another picture of the divide, you can see the density here, the number of like households like per square unit of like land on this side, and similarly on like this side, if you see. Okay, so we will see some distribution of inequality and child mortality, like how it is taking shape. Under 5 mortality rates, increasing inequality. If you see on this side, we have change in the ratio of under 5 mortality rate U5MR, among the poorest 20% to U5MR among the richest 20%. So the poorest 20% countries to the richest 20% countries, like this distribution is actually made. So countries with decreasing U5MR, decreasing inequality, decreasing mortality, you see these like listed like yellow ones are here. Okay, and most reds, countries with decreasing U5MR, increasing inequality, are mostly distributed on this side, right? Very few, only 3 are there in this orange one, and 4 are here in this zone. So most countries which saw a decrease in under 5 mortality, a target under MDG 4, witnessed an increase in disparities in mortality rates between richest and poorest. The poorest 20% of the world's children are twice as likely as the richest to die before the age of 5. Okay, so now you can see like this distinction also. Increasing mortality, decreasing mortality, and this is this like a percentage, like this is this ratio of under like this thing. So yeah, 20, 40, 60, 20, 40, 60 on this dimension. Change in net Gini index 1990 to 2012. Okay, you can see the numbers are given over here, and this is this color like a legend, and this is the source IMF calculations. Okay, so the Gini coefficient is the most commonly used measure of inequality, showing the income distribution of a country's residents. A Gini coefficient of 1 represents a perfectly unequal society. 1 unequal, where one person has all the income, and 0 represents a perfectly equal society, as 0 represents perfectly equal, in which every person receives the same income. The map below shows the percentage change in the net Gini by region over the years 1990 to 2012. Income inequality as measured by the Gini coefficient increased in most of Europe, Asia and North America, some parts of Africa. It declined in most of Latin America and Africa, but remained at very high levels. So this net change, if you see, this is minus 0.5 to 0%. Chile and few more, I think Mexico also here, and many of Madagascar and other like African countries. And here we have 0 to 5, you know, like this orange, you know, this Canada, US, India, Australia, New Zealand, and many of these European countries, and reds 5 to 20%. We see in Russia, China, Pakistan, South Africa, and a few more. And here we will see wealth disparities. So in this one, well, this is from you know, like a UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report. So most deprived groups are on the, you know, like a left side, national average in between, and most privileged group, that is on the right side. So in wealth wise, if we see 0% to 100%. Okay, this is given over here. The poorest, you know, in the almost in the middle at 40%, 45%. Gender wise, poorest, you know, male, and richest, male and female. You see this, you know, like this is around 55%, and here this male, you know, is I think close to 90%, right? For women also it is good, I think 85%. For female in the poorest, this is, you know, like maybe at 40%. Urban and rural divide. So poorest to, you know, like a female, poorest male, poorest female, poorest, you know, male. You can see in this one. Okay, so that divide is also given. Rural, urban, rural, urban, urban, urban. Yeah, so the urban, I think this is close to 90%, and here it is still in the middle or lower middle, you know, like range. Okay, some trends in inequality across, you know, like states. Well, this I have referred from, you know, like the Planning Commission, the previous, you know, like formerly it was known as the like Planning Commission of India. Okay, so from there, Yojana Ayog's, you know, like a website. Now it is, I think, Niti Ayog. Maybe you should, you know, like refer, you know, like their latest report and see. It was found here, like in many of this actually, you know, like inequality is going down. I think Bihar, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, you know, Haryana, Karnataka, but some of the states, if you see, it is rising, like Kerala, it's going up, Assam gradually going up, HP also gradually going up, okay, and rest of the places I think it's coming down. Yeah, everywhere it is coming down, except this Tamil Nadu, where, yeah, Tamil Nadu has the highest decline. I think Karnataka has the highest decline, right? It's quite steep. Yeah. Okay, so with this we have come to the last slide, where we will see, you know, some UN Environment's graphical representation of challenges and solutions under reduced inequalities, SDG 10. So exploitation of natural resources is a contributor to inequality, fueling conflicts worldwide. So one of the, you know, like very basic regions, you know, of exploitation of, you know, like natural resources, you know, and many such demonstrations and protests, you know, you may have heard of or seen or maybe witnessed, you know, from your place, you know, against the, you know, like infrastructure development, or maybe a power plant, or maybe, you know, something, right? So that actually comes at the cost of, you know, like a loss to the, you know, like a nature, right? Loss of the, you know, like a environment, and that becomes you know, like a tricky this thing for the survival of you know, like that ethnic groups, right? So better to invest in sound and fair management of natural resources to reduce inequality. So to empower these people, you know, and to inform them officially what are their rights and, you know, what are their, you know, like duties, so that, you know, they are better equipped. Next point we see, climate change and disasters have a dire impact on the poorest and vulnerable groups and contribute to exacerbate existing inequalities within and across countries. Yeah. So you see this, you know, like the pictures we saw, you know, like the lower half is, you know, like prone to like a disasters, the upper half looks okay, right? So promote institutional arrangements, provide equal and fair access to use of like a natural resources, or even like man like installed like a facilities and infrastructure also. Natural disasters and environmental degradation increase levels of displacement worldwide. Since 2008, around 22.5 million people have been displaced by climate change or weather related hazards. So many number of people, running in crores. What to do? Protect the environment, adapt and fight climate change to reduce inequalities, conflicts and forced migration worldwide. So with all of these good intention, actually there should be, or there must be like a strong like a policy frameworks and implementation schemes, so that this is implemented properly in place, because all of those benefits which are coming from the top should reach to the needy. Then only I think the fair distribution of like things can be actually carried out. Okay, so with this we have come to the end of this module with the SDG 10. So thank you all for joining. See you in the next one.